Hey, all, Board Game Answer, we will find everything solo, tabletop, gaming, and more. Thank you for joining me. This is the best of 2018. I'm very excited to share it with you. Tons of deliberation. Here we go. So you may have noticed I didn't really put anything about there about being a top 10 list or a just games even. This will be all about games, but I also wanted to recognize some other things that I think are important in the industry, in the content providing arena, as well as games. And so I'm going to get to that all as well and try and do it in a timely manner. We'll see about that. So in the spirit of the most recognizable format, I did just try and come up with the 10 games that I just couldn't stop thinking about the whole year. And so we'll start with that. And in no particular order, there was Too Many Bones, Undertow, that came out. There was Anachrony as well that I picked up this year. Renegade was another one. Mage Knight is actually something that I didn't pick up. It's been out a long time, but I never stopped really thinking about it. Gloomhaven, I got that earlier this year. Scythe, most notably Rise of Fenris, that came out this year. Gaia Project. Sprawlopolis, little tiny card game. Spirit Island, and my most recent, well, actually it's not my most recent added to the collection, but Teotihuacan, City of Gods, that kind of came in a bunch of games that I got in December that stood out, actually in November and December. So there's, I think that's 10 games that I just kind of find myself always, just processing in my head, like when I'm thinking about, what do I want to play next? Those sort of just keep rising up, and they're always considerations of at least this past year that I can it's just kind of a gut, like that's just, I always like, well, maybe I should revisit that again. So within that arena, though, now we have the problem of coming up with the number one, the game that takes the cake. And that was so in order to do that, I was a little overwhelmed, because it's I want to be fair to you, the viewer, and I want to be fair to me as well, and try and come up and justify it, I guess. Because again, I have been seeing, and my last video I put up kind of the top 10 things I dislike about top 10 lists, and I wanted to stay away from all of that. But one thing I realized is I need to come up with some parameters. And so I did. So here are the parameters that I used to come up with, to help me filter, basically, and the best game of 2018. And this is not necessarily games that just came out in 2018, but games that I picked up and or started, played in 2018. But, well, anyway, here's the parameters that I used, because one of them has to be, it can't be, for instance, Mage Knight. It just can't be the best of 2018 because it was out years ago, even though it's a solo staple. So, tactile. How does the game feel? Does it feel good to play in the sense that you're moving pieces around, and what do they feel like? Are they chunky? All that, that's a big part of gameplay for me. Setup and takedown. Does it set up quickly? Does it take down quickly? Or at least does it match something as far as what the game has to do with? Does it seem like it's fair, the setup? Is it reasonable? Table space needed. Does it take up like just a mass amount? I mean, you're going to have a special set aside place in some desolate part of your house. Portability. That was another thing. Can you just pick up this game and just haul off with it and have without thinking twice, like, we're going to go run off to somewhere and I can just grab this game, and or is it not like that? Replayability. Does it just lend itself to wanting to be played again and again and again, getting a different rich experience each time you play it? Strategy. What's the complexity of the game? How heavy is it? Mechanics. Do I like how all the mechanics work? Do I even like the mechanics? Length of play. How long does it take? Plain and simple. And does it match up with what I find ideal, which could be different than what other people find. The value. That's another big one. That's becoming a bigger and bigger one, because there's such disparity out there when you're purchasing a game and what you get for it. And so whatever I am paying for this game, do I feel like, man, that was worth it? Rule books. Rule books are another big one that are becoming a difficult finding good rule books that do well to detail the game that you're trying to learn in a way, in a format that makes sense is becoming a big thing. You know, do I have to spend most of my time just referring to a rule book, trying to deal with all the vagaries? Theme's another one. It's always important, you know. But it's not like, I don't want to give it too much importance, because if the game is just fun, that's probably, I mean, that's got to be bottom line. That's where it's at. You know, is the game fun? So that's another consideration, along with theme. And, you know, does it have to, like, does everything have to make sense? It's like, oh wow, I'm playing this, you know, how does that mechanic thematically make sense to the game? I don't really care, as long as it's fun. Level adjust. So now we get into more of the solo. What type of adjustments are made to allow this game to be played solo? And I mean, maybe some games are just designed to be solo, or they're co-op. Does it have level adjustments to it that you can increase or decrease the difficulty? And probably maybe the number one thing that I'm looking for, that kind of the defining parameter for me, is the solo design. You know, there's games that are just coming out that are co-op that you can just easily just play solo, but maybe you have to play two characters at once or something. There's games that are just, you know, you're not really playing against something, you're just playing against the game. And then there's games where you're actually just something's been modified, a variant has been developed, so it mimics playing a multiplayer game. There's games that the designs do an AI type of design where it mimics like what a second player might do, and you have some predictability there. The best designs, in my opinion, have a way that you can kind of reasonably guess what the AI might do, and that is going to change the way you play. As opposed to, say, I think some of the, I mean, I guess it's the type of game that you're playing, but some are just more of an impeding kind of player game. It just throws random stuff at you to kind of get in your way and keep you from scoring higher or winning or something. And that's probably now it's kind of the way, it was the next level of solo variant design, was this sort of impeding player kind of thing. But now there's these smart AI designs that are being created that are a cut above. So given all those parameters, that was a mouthful. Let's run through. I'm going to go through, actually, first, before I get to the games, I want to acknowledge some of the other things that I think are important in gaming. And so I want to acknowledge my favorite publisher this past year that just really stood out for me. And there's a few that kind of stood out, and there's definitely a few that I did not like. But the one that I enjoy the most is Chip Theory Games. Those guys, Adam and Josh Carlson, are designing games and then publishing games like no other. And so that is my favorite publisher of 2018. Favorite reviewer. So when you go on, you know, when I'm trying to figure out games I might like, who's the reviewer that is? There's tons of reviewers out there. Who do I go to? Who do I put most stock in? That would be Jeremy Salinas from Man vs. Meeple. The games that he likes, I tend to like. And so I look to him for that. I don't know that I've got a game that he has liked that really I synced up with that I've regretted. And so Jeremy Salinas, Man vs. Meeple, favorite reviewer. Favorite designer is this year is David Turkczi. And I recently kind of raved about his design on Teotihuacan, City of Gods. And then there's Anachrony. He did Dice Settlers. He's doing these designs are exactly what I was talking about earlier. They are AI designs. They are smart designs. David is coming up with designs that are I believe, you know, we're talking next level shit here. Each design is unique in the way that it works, but it's all falling back onto kind of a dice rolling mechanism, and that is what's giving me, the player, a way to kind of gauge what my opponent is going to do. And that stands out so tall above some of the... Now, when Automa came out, those, or Automa, I don't know, I always say Automa, the cards like from Viticulture first came out, that was a big step up. But Viticulture kind of represents, to me, kind of that impeding player. You just flip over a card and it blocks some stuff, and it just makes it difficult to kind of score. But now you got David Turksey coming out with, again, Anachrony and those kind of variants that you're rolling dice. And so now when you're rolling dice, you can kind of see, especially when you have this 2 dice mechanism to it with Teotihuacan, that really gave you, I mean, you could pretty much guess what it was going to do, but it would sometimes, a lot of times, it wouldn't quite do it, but it would change the way. It's like, oh, it's probably going to roll a 6, 7, or 8, which is going to do this action. So, and I know, knowing that's going to happen, what do I have to do to try to maximize what I'm trying to do? And it was fantastic. Now, perhaps a favorite content provider. There's a lot out there, but who really did I relate to the most? Who do I enjoy watching the most? And this might come as a surprise because they're not a person really that does the, focuses on solo stuff. Board Game Inquisition. She has, from the beginning, now I started my channel earlier last, I don't know, it was April, May, and from the very beginning, I think she was one of the first 5 subscribers, and she's offered feedback, very constructive feedback and support, and she comes from a very genuine place. It's just so refreshing, and she's so kind and very thoughtful and very, she's all over the place on Instagram and Twitter and creating videos and always commenting, and you can always reach out to her. She's fantastic. Board Game Inquisition. I will attach some sort of link somewhere. Please go support her. She offers so much to this gaming industry. So let's get down to the games part. So got a few categories here. First one is my favorite little game, because I'm not big on little games. I found out I purchased a lot of them. I'm going to put, I think in the notes, I'm going to put below the list of games that I purchased this in over 2018. There's about 36, I think. It was 35 to 40 games. And many of them were smaller games, and I tried to grab them and see, because there was a lot of solo buzz about them, like Castles of Burgundy, the card game, and Tiny Epic Galaxies. But I found out that I'm just not a big fan. It's just, there's no staying power for me in those games. I like games, it seems like, that have a complexity rating. If you go on Board Game Geek, that ranges somewhere between 3.5 and 4 or higher even. And so I like complex games, and these smaller games just weren't cutting it for me, except for, and you may have heard me, I mean, if you've been watching this channel, you've heard me just talk about it constantly, Sprawlopolis. Sprawlopolis takes the cake by far as a small game that you can set up in seconds and play and put away. You can just pop it in your pocket, you can take off, it's just delightful. Every time I start, you throw it out there and you got these 3 objectives, and then it's just like, what am I going to build? And you can play it. You can just play it almost mindlessly and just like pop things, just do this gut kind of feeling game, or you can really sit there and take your time with it. Sprawlopolis is just a cut above as far as little games are concerned. It's my favorite. Something also, too, I realized about myself is I'm kind of romanticized by these games that are coming out that are all about persistence and campaign and legacy style games, and I pick them up, and I just can't wait to dig into them, and I'm reading through the rules, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be good, and I play that first game or 2 or 3, and then I put it away, and I never take it out again. Like Pandemic Legacy Season 1, I got 2 or 3 games in. Folklore, The Affliction, I've still got it sitting up on top of my dog kennel. I want to play it, but it's just sitting there. Detective, a modern board game, or that is also a persistent thing. Still just kind of sitting there off to the side. Even with Too Many Bones, it came out with a campaign style, and I find that I love the idea. I want to like it, but it's just this persistent idea just doesn't stick with me. It's great for video games. I love video games with that, but it's just not, I guess, what I'm really looking for in a board game, because I find I pick them up with all these great intentions and then I just never finish them. But the game that I did, so I had to put it on here, my favorite campaign, persistent, legacy style game, Rise of Fenris from Scythe. That I did. It was only 8 games long, but after each game, I just wanted more. I mean, in some of them, I remember one, it was just like, was stunning. That's it? The game can't be over? That's it? I gotta play again. And I blasted through that little campaign. And it was a fantastic experience. And also, too, it just made me feel good that I finally completed friggin' campaign style game. So my favorite game, and again, going through, and this is where all the deliberation took into account as I'm trying to go through that original list. Again, it was, the tactile, what's the setup, what's the teardown, how much table space does it take, portability, replayability, what's the strategy, what's the depth, the complexity order, the mechanics involved in the game, the length of play, the value, the rule books, the how well is that done, thematically, can the level be adjusted where solo is concerned, what is the solo design like, and is it a newer 2018-ish kind of game, and of course, is the damn thing fun? And it all boiled down to those 10 that I started with, Gaia Project. I was a little surprised, too, because I thought for sure it was going to be too many bones. And but when I took into account, but that's really, I think, what it took, is I had to come up with a list of parameters and then kind of roll through all the games with it. And see where, all the games scored different level, really high in some areas and really low in other areas. And but across the board, Gaia Project just took the cake for me. And it is my favorite solo tabletop game of 2018. I think it came out in 2017 or later 2017. I think I remember picking it up in January, but it was pretty new then. And that has just been a go-to. Every time I've played it, I'm not going to go too much into the depth because I've done, you might check out I did a couple videos on this, and so I'll add those to the link. But one of my favorite, the thing that really brought it over the top was it was designed by Automa, by the same group that did Viticulture and Scythe and stuff, but it took it to that next level. The fact that you could go through these cards that represented the AI at the end of each round and to see what was in there. And then you can kind of see, okay, you got to shuffle them up, but you can see what actions it's going to take. Is it going to be building mines? Is it going to be leveling up in research? Is it going, you can just see like the cards that it was potentially going to do next round. But then you had to add that little extra surprise card at the end of each round. And so there was always that one that you had no clue about, but at the end of that round you could find out, but then you had to add another one. So there was that way of guessing what was going to come out. And the mechanic that really grabbed me in that game was this nebulous kind of power as a resource, and power you could do everything with. And it's just, there's nothing like it out there. There's the resources, even in that game, kind of standard ore or gold, but there was, knowledge too was a resource, but there's nothing like this power resource that cycles around in this bowl, and that power you can use to generate more resources, or you can use it to create federations, or you can sacrifice power to shift power over so that you can use it to terraform. You could use it to do everything. And it was this little game in and of itself that all the different factions kind of had a different way of using and utilizing this weird resource of power and the way it was generated. And I thought it was kind of weird to begin with. It is weird, but it's the most perfect weird because it brings this game to a whole nother level, just that little mechanic, and that it is applied to all the different factions, and there's 14 different factions and 7 different styles of Automa that you can play that make this a cut above all the rest. And some of the things that maybe scored lowest on was setup. It takes a while to set up, but the teardown really wasn't that bad. And table space needs quite a bit of table space. It's not the most portable game because it's just kind of big and awkward. It's a spendy game. It's just worth it because I'll play this game forever. So and the pieces were very solid. I thought they were great components and stuff. But for about $100, I've gotten other games that I think I've gotten you get more stuff for. And the rule book was outstanding. The theme was, fine. You could adjust the levels, which is very important. And the solo design, again, was that AI type design. And it was very tactile. I love just playing the game and moving stuff. It's very colorful, very vivid. Ramping down a little bit here, another little tasty little morsel for all you solo gamers out there. I don't know if everyone's aware, but on Board Game Geek, there is a one-player guild. And I want to put a shout out to those guys because I think they were there was a group that kind of first subscribed to my channel that made me feel great. And also, too, it's just a fantastic resource for anybody who plays solo tabletop games. I mean, you can go on there and there's just constant activity on that. So I would recommend checking that out. And then from another standpoint on Board Game Geek, I think a little known, someone that's just not brought up anymore because back in the day, there was no solo variants 15 years ago or so. I mean, what you did was you took a game and you played it 2-player back and forth if you wanted to play solo. And so there's a user on there called Game Rules for One, I believe. Check out that user. Or you can search tag solo play, I believe, and it will come up with this individual's variants, solo variants, and some of these are, I mean, just they were ahead of their time. They're very complex for the most part. I mean, you're looking at pages of rules to play a game solo, but it's really coming down to, I think, we saw that I want to say it was over 10 years ago that I first saw this, and it was worth it because it just allowed me to play a game solo that had no one was talking really solo games hardly then. And then but then the Automa variants and these impeding player type variants came out that were pretty quick and easy to implement. So I kind of gravitated towards that because it just still let me play games, but it was a lot easier than trying to read through pages of rules. But now I'm starting to migrate back to that because solo gaming is a developing industry. The quality of games coming out to be able to play them solo the way I want to play them solo, I'm willing to put myself through this extra set of rules. And so I would suggest checking that out if you haven't. You might find some gems in there. I know I just looked on there and I found he did a variant for German railroads to play it solo. Or not German railroads, Russian railroads. There's German railroads, which I just can't really get a hold of, and I don't really want to spend the extra money to do it, that has kind of a solo variant, but he did one for Russian railroads, and I'm just freaking excited. He also, another little tidbit of funness, if you like card games, and I mentioned Sprawlopolis there, but if you like more of a tableau building card game, Innovation is a very old game that he came up with. Just one of my favorite variants, solo variants of his that he ever did was for Innovation. And then I just saw he recently added the expansions. And so I'm going to be checking that out. So there's a couple little tasty little tidbits for solo gamers out there. And last but not least, I'd just like to put out there that, I'm going to continue to be pretty vocal about what I like and what I dislike, and my opinions are going to be, flying left and right. This is board game rants. This is part of the gig. But even though I may not agree with what some of these content providers are doing, I have tremendous respect for the fact that they're even putting themselves out there and they are providing information that is very helpful to the gaming industry. I will never forget that, and I will always respect that. I may not like how they're doing it sometimes, but heck, there's things that I do that drive myself crazy and I criticize myself for. So we can always get better, and that's all I will ever be bringing up any kind of criticism for, is in an effort to get better. And I include myself in that above all else. There is no other expectation higher than what I have for myself in trying to put out quality content on this channel. And I will continue to look around and judge others and their channels and bring up my thoughts about them. But I never question my appreciation for what they're doing and the respect that I have for what they're doing, because they're putting themselves out there for the world to judge. And that takes guts. That takes courage and all respect. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. What I brought up there, those 10 games, I think I've done some material on most of them, and so you can check those out. You might just kind of scan through the channel real quick. I've touched on most of those games, and so you might want to check those out to find out, you know, what I think, or if you want to learn a little bit more about those other all 10 of those games that I brought up, except for Mage Knight. Mage Knight, though, I mean, heck, you can find content anywhere, anytime on that. I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me. Please leave down down below any questions or comments about anything you heard or saw here. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I'm Board Game Rants. I'm out.